Today, we're going to get right into the hot button topics because there's a couple interesting ones out there. So let's get right into it. Let's start with here. Last week, we had a little bit of a bank scare. There were some indications that a couple of large bankruptcies were going to lead to excessively large losses at a couple of large banks, which sent the regional banks into a bit of a mini tailspin with regard to performance for the week. I'm not reading a ton into this one yet. So I think the biggest commentary and the thing that spooked investors the most was Jamie Dimon's comments, which often are highly publicized, but often under the lens of he tends to be a little bombastic. And his commentary was that usually there's more than just a few cockroaches out there. When you see one, it's not the only one, something like that. He's right, is that a lot of times these things can lead to greater things that we didn't see at the outset. And so these initial bankruptcies, these initial losses can cascade into other things. And that's why you saw the regional bank sell-off. I'm not there yet on this, but it is something I'm watching. But I think the bigger thing for me, and I've heard this from a couple of different places that I've read on this over the weekend and this morning, is the potential implication of what we call shadow lending or shadow banking, which is other institutions, non-traditional banks, right? Not where you go to a branch and you get a loan. These are other institutions that have been acting as pseudo lenders in place of, or sometimes in, complete substitution for a regional bank conventional type of loan. And, there's estimates on the extent of the size here. There's estimates on the amount of regulation, which is a little less. There's a lot of estimates that show that this avenue, the shadow component of banking, has been growing over the past few years. And the worry for people is that because that is much bigger and because we know less about it, because they're not subject to the same level of regulatory scrutiny as the traditional banks, there may be a bigger problem hiding in the shadows here. Again, I'm not there yet, but it is something to pay attention to, and just understanding that there are multiple avenues of lending for companies, for individuals, and these kinds of things. And it might not all be under the balance sheet of the traditional banks.